Australia's modern history is not a long one. In the cultural landscape here in coastal Fremantle in Western Australia, surviving 19th century buildings are few and far between. Today, sun-drenched Fremantle is a gentrified tourist town, but among its historic structures is evidence of a dark past. The old roundhouse is a remnant of Australia's notorious prison period.
Convicts from Europe were not the only people incarcerated in the jails of early Australia. Here in Fremantle, near Perth, in Western Australia, is the Roundhouse, a prison built by Aborigines, for Aborigines, in the early 1830s. They would be imprisoned here in the small rooms, whose doors you see behind me, and from there they would be transferred to Rottnest Island offshore prior to their assignment to working gangs in the forests or on the fields of Western Australia. Behind me also is a well from which water was acquired during the dry season. Southwestern Australia has a Mediterranean climate and a very severe hot dry season during which very little water is available. So while in Tasmania and other parts of eastern Australia, Europeans were incarcerated in large numbers and used in work gangs and experienced brutal conditions, Port Arthur in Tasmania is a remnant of that. This roundhouse in Fremantle, is a memorial to the Aborigines who suffered a similar fate, but were much less heralded in the history of the country.
But why were overseas convicts transported to Australia's shores? Tasmanian historian Mick Brophy explains.
Transporting convicts from England actually started in 1580. Convicts were being taken from England off to the West Indian colonies, but then of course came the American colonies. Now the primary reason for Australia being settled in the first place is the Declaration of Independence in 1776. Once the Americans declared independence from England, the British were left with a quandary. They had convicts and nowhere to send them. And that's when they started to look towards the southland of Australia.
This explains why the first convicts arrived at what is today Sydney in 1788. But many came here to the convict city built at Port Arthur on the island of Tasmania. Port Arthur is located at the southern tip of the Tasman Peninsula, from where escape was almost impossible. Hobart, the capital of the island state, lay 60 miles away. One half of all the overseas convicts sent to Australia came to Tasmania, and as many as 80,000 came here. Many were hardcore criminals, but some 3,000 were children, the youngest just 9 years old. Walls and watchtowers kept the prisoners confined, and hard labor kept them occupied. Misconduct resulted in harsh penalties, including exile to a remote island in the path of Antarctic winds. Today, Port Arthur is a tourist attraction, but it also stands as a grim reminder of the inhumanity that marked the birth of a nation.